So, welcome to our webinar on husbandry, canine husbandry. So we are going to be looking at a few different areas today, and I'm going to be doing a few bits to show you with my own dogs, with Merlin and Ripley. So we are going to be looking at things like grooming. So what areas can you do your grooming yourself? At the minute you can't obviously use a groomer, most people. So being able to groom your dogs at home, at least to keep them nice and comfortable, means that when they next go to the groomer in however many weeks or months, it's going to be a lot less painful and uncomfortable for them. It's going to be a lot less traumatic for your groomer as well, and you know, everyone can move forward. So we're not saying to suddenly stop using groomers completely, absolutely not. But you can make life easier for you, your dog and your groomer as well. So we're going to look a little bit at grooming. But nothing specific, okay? You know, what I do with my dogs will be specific to their type of coat, and so you know, different breeds have different types of coats, but just ways of keeping your dogs comfortable and manageable. We're going to be looking at things like their paws, so looking at trimming the feet, cutting the nails, different methods you can use for that. We are going to look at teeth cleaning and oral hygiene, so ways that you can clean your dog's teeth, from literally just keeping them a little bit clean to actually getting dirt and plaque off them, and different levels of that, and a few other bits and pieces to help with if your dog isn't sure about you doing these things, and how you can start desensitising them and helping them to stay a little bit more comfortable with having these things done. So the first thing we're going to have a look at here is going to be grooming. So what will happen is you'll flip between me talking and me demonstrating. Alright, so with grooming, my two are under the table at the moment. They are so keen to get started because they like being up here. When I groom my dogs, I always have them on a table of some sort. So this is an actual grooming table that I'm leaning on, but if we're away in the caravan, then I'll just have them on. I put a non-slip mat down, and we have a table we put out in the awning, and I go out there and do it out there. So it doesn't have to be anything specific, but I have them off the floor. I give them their own little space so that they haven't got to worry about where each other are. I haven't got to worry about my back quite so much, and I can just get on with what I'm doing basically. I can see much better as well, and as the fur's coming off, I can quickly just brush it away and carry on with what I'm doing. So having a table can help. So if you've got a dog that is a bit wriggly or a bit, you know, restless, having a table can help because they know what's coming. So as soon as I put the table up, my dogs rush to queue up. They don't care what's going to happen up here. They're happy to get up. So having something like that, make sure it's not slippery, is very important as well. If your dog's not comfortable, they're going to just want to jump off basically, which obviously isn't always good. So when you're doing grooming, for me personally, I always like to give my dogs constant feedback. So tell them that they're good, and also to treat them as we're going along. And that's how we keep it nice and positive and keep them wanting to do it, and that's how it makes it much easier for me. Now, I do also show my dogs, mildly. We don't go to many shows at all, but if I can groom them comfortably and they're used to being on a table, then it means when I go to a show, I can quickly get the table out, put them on there, give them a quick neaten up, and they're perfectly comfortable with that. They're no problem whatsoever. I'm not fighting with them to get them done. They are absolutely happy with it. It means that when they do work for TV or magazines, and I get to somewhere, even if I'm running a bit late, I can quickly get a comb out, do them a quick brush over, and they're absolutely fine with it. So it just makes life so much easier for other things, as well as their general comfort if they're comfortable being groomed. So when you're doing the grooming with your dogs, think about how long you're going to spend, especially if you don't do much with them. Think about where you need to work on. So there are more areas that are easier, and there are areas that are more difficult to work with dogs. So typically, if your dog isn't great at being groomed, you wouldn't want to be worrying about areas under the tail too soon, because it's going to be a really sensitive area. The furnishings down the leg, perhaps, they've got longer fur. The area under the ears, that can often get knotty if they've got long ears and long fur. So it's just looking at places that we can start off and make it nice for them, and then gradually building it up. So if you haven't done any grooming with your dog yet, so it might be you've got a puppy who's 8 weeks, 6 months, 10 months, and you're thinking, well, they're going to go to the groomers. I'm not going to be grooming them myself, and they're still young, so I haven't started yet. I would get started now. Okay, when I picked up Cassie and Taylor, so my two of my previous Norwich, when I went to pick them up, they already were used to being on their breeder's lap, where he would, you know, get them used to being handled. He was already like stripping bits of the excess fur off of their ears, getting them used to the touch of a comb. You know, it just became something that they were very used to having. So there's no too early to be looking at. So if you've got a dog and they have some fur, you can start. Even if they haven't, you can still be massaging them and getting the natural oils going. So what I would start with is, if you've never brushed your dog or groomed your dog, is maybe start with a softest brush. Now you'll have seen all sorts of different tools and bits and pieces, so just to show you, we've got things like rakes, and this is a Mars undercoat type of brush, and these are to get the fluff underneath the main coat out. You can get a lot out with these, but they do touch your dog's skin. They're not ideal to get your dog used to being groomed, okay, because they do drag through the fur a little bit. So I'd actually go with something like a really nice soft brush, because then you can just get your dog used to the feel of it. It's not going to do a lot, but you can get them used to the feel of it, praise them, keep it really short, you know. Wait till they're tired, wait until they're starting to have a bit of a nap, then maybe sit with them or put them on your lap or put them on a table. Run the brush over them a couple of times, give them a chew while they're at it, and then that's it, done. All done. So they've had a really nice positive experience, and I've just got to have my alarm's going off. So they have a positive experience with it, and they want to come back and have more. If you decide, actually I need to get this done, and you sit there for an hour just trying to get through knots, it's going to be so uncomfortable for your dog, and in the end you're going to start getting bored, and your arm's going to get tired, and you're going to start trying to get done quickly, and you end up just everyone not enjoying it and not wanting to do it again, basically. So keeping it nice and short, start using, you know, something like a wide tooth comb works quite well, just to get started along the back, perhaps just around the neck and the main body area. You might be able to get down towards the rump, you might be able to get part of the tail, depends on your dog and how fluffy they are. But take it slowly, do little bits, okay? Hold the dog's skin, hold the fur as you're going, so you're not just dragging it through and pulling it. And obviously I've got longish hair, so I'm quite used to knowing what it feels like to have a brush being dragged through it. But you might not, so you've got to think of it from your dog's perspective, okay? See what position they want to go in. So mine tend to stand at first and then gradually they'll sit or lay down. That's fine, unless I need to get to a certain part of the body. It doesn't really matter what position they're in at all, and then I'll just move them as I need them to move, okay? So my type of dogs have to be hand stripped, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So there's a lot of fur to come out, there's a lot of areas that need doing. Majority is stripped, some of it is trimmed, some of it is just neatened a little bit. Laying down there, they've got bored waiting. But it doesn't mean I'm going to stand here and do the whole lot in one go. Some dogs you can do, that's fine. I prefer not to, one, because it's not comfortable for me because of my ME, but it's also not comfortable for my dogs particularly either. So I'll bring them up and I'll decide, right, okay, today I'm going to maybe trim feet and do the beards and just get the comb going through them to get any knots out, and then tomorrow I'll start doing a real heavy session of hand stripping with them. And then the day after that, maybe I'll trim around the tail area and I'll strip out the ears. And then another day I'll come back and I'll trim maybe around the eyebrow area, and then just go over them, you know, a bit more finely with the stripping knife and build it up from there. So you haven't got to do it all in one go either, okay? So I'm going to bring Merlin up in a second. So just to give you an idea of some of the grooming things that I use, which again, some of these are specific to my type of dogs. So I go through them, but as like you see that on a zoom. And so I use the wide comb first, and then once I've gone over the coat, I use the smaller teeth version. Now there are elastic bands on here. A very good friend of mine told me years ago that if you add elastic band to your greyhound comb, which is what these are called, then it helps grip the fur, and it does. It was an excellent tip, and as you can see, I have elastic bands on. It works, it really does work, so thank you very much for that. That is Sarah who gave me that tip. So I use that to go over the body. I've got stripping combs types, which I use to go through the body. You can use it on the head as well, and that just grabs some of the loose fur and brings it out. As I showed you already, I've got different kinds of rakes and undercoat combs and knives and things that just takes out underneath the coat and neatens things up. I've got ways of hand stripping, So using finger cots is a very good, it's inside out, is a very good tool to have if you're stripping your dogs out, and that just helps to get hold of the fur. You can also use like a chalky powder, which is good for gripping hold of the fur. And then I've got a couple of different types of scissors, which again are specific to what I need them for. So I've got my normal scissors with a flattened end, which I use for trimming the feet, getting right in there, trimming it in the eyes, that sort of thing. And then for neatening up beards, furnishings on the legs and going around the tail area, I have this, and they have got the teeth on one side. And what the thinning shears do, instead of it being a blunt end that you get from normal scissors, it will be much more sort of tapered. So it's a bit like if I was having my hair, oh, what's the word? You know what I'm saying, when you have it in layers, layered. So it kind of does more that sort of effect. Okay, so put these scissors back away. You tend to find that if you spend a bit more on your scissors, you get a much better cut, but you do have to look after them, so you don't want to drop your scissors really. So I'll move them out of the way, because I don't need them for this. I don't need them at the moment either, and I don't need that. So we're going to start with... He needs a brush. He's not had a brush for a while. Have you, buddy? There's a good boy. So Merlin's looking in this camera, I'm looking in this camera. So I'm just going to chuck a few bits of food here for him, and I'm just going to go over the body. So if you watch what I'm doing with the hand that hasn't got the comb in it, I am holding on to the fur and the base of where the fur meets the coat, meets the body, so that I'm not just dragging it through and pulling it, because then you're going to pull the skin at the same time. That's really not very comfortable. So I'm just helping to make sure that I'm not pulling him about too much. It's just the comb and the fur. If you can hear a noise, it's ripped under the table demanding to come up. And then we start to see that we're getting a little bit of coat to come through. So we're getting out any knots, we're getting out any loose bits, we're getting out any odd bits of debris that might be in there somewhere. You're a very good boy, aren't you, Merlin? And of course what the other hand is doing as well is giving a little bit of touch, a little bit of praise as we're going along. So while I'm down here, I'll just quickly go over the tail. That's a good boy. What am I after? Here's a good boy. I'm going to go under the ear. So this section under the ear here, under there, that is an area that can often be knotty but also quite sensitive, and that's an area that, as many groomers will tell you, if a dog has never had grooming before, by the time they get to a year and they've got quite long ears and long fur, or they don't get groomed in between sessions with them, that's an area that often is really quite knotty and can take quite a lot of time to undo. So if you don't do a lot of grooming with your dog but you are going to see a groomer, I would please urge you to at least put a comb or a brush through your dog's fur once a week, if not more regularly, and pay attention to areas like under that area there, or under the area here, under here, okay? Because they're the areas that do tend to get matted, and they can take groomers a lot of work to get undone. They often have to cut a lot of the fur off. He's a good boy, aren't you? You're a good boy. So we're getting somewhere. I've got a few bits of fur out already, so just to try and make sure I don't end up with too much, I always have a little bag I can put the fur in. Just means he's not going to eat it by mistake or sit on it. Good boy, aren't you? You're such a good boy, Merlin, aren't you, hey? Funny Ripley. So I'm going to reach over, go down the shoulder a bit, and I'm going to do the legs. And so this part here on the leg is the furnishings, okay? And that's the bit that sticks out. So again, I'm just going to hold onto the leg, hold onto the base of the fur, so I'm not pulling it as I'm grooming. Same for down the body. Careful around the knees. So I'm just trying to make this as least uncomfortable as I possibly can for him. And as you can see, I'm just every now and then giving him an odd bit of treat. All right, doesn't matter that he's sitting at the minute, because what I'm doing isn't you know, in the way. So I'm just going over a few things. I'll just have a quick look at his beard. There's a very good boy. There's a very good boy. And again, keeping it nice, give him a treat for that, because that was a good boy. And the other side of the beard, I'm just going to hold on to his nose. And again, that's more so that I can help hold on to that fur and not drag it through. You're such a good boy, aren't you? What a good boy you are. Mm-hmm. You are, okay? So I've now gone over most of the body. The area I haven't got to yet is the back legs, really. So I'm just going to ask him to stand up. He's cheeky. and then while he's standing I can reach over, and again I'm holding onto the fur so that I don't pull. And this is a really sensitive area here, so that's often why dogs will sit down anyway. So I can fan the hair out a bit, that helps me get there. A little bit on the bum, cheeky. And then I'll do the other side as well. So I'm not going to obviously stand here and just do a whole video on grooming, because you know this takes many hours of work to get the dog fully stripped out. But it's just to sort of give you an idea of how you can do this just to keep your dogs comfortable, okay? So at this stage I've literally just sort of spent 10 minutes putting a comb through Merlin's fur. Haven't really done a lot to make a lot of difference, but it will be more comfortable for him. Okay, there's a good boy. Yeah, you've got a knot underneath there. Let's just get that little knot out. There's a good boy. There you go, good lad. So we just had a knot underneath, so I was just holding the fur again while I teased the knot out for him. Clever boy, aren't you? Such a good boy now. So, praise him for that. So, that might be all I do in a whole session, and do that for both dogs, alright? Normally, I'd get that bit done, I'd have a quick look over them. I might use the thinner teeth just to go over the eyebrows again. Good boy, just to make sure you can see. And that might be all I do. I did want to quickly show you feet while we're here. That's one of the things I did want to work on. So it's really important with dogs' feet of any age, but especially more so if you've got an older dog, so senior dogs, or if you've got a puppy and you've got slippery floors anywhere. Because the more they slip, the more they are likely to cause themselves an injury or do damage. When they're younger, it can actually lead to issues with the joints, and they can be obviously pulling tendons and muscles and things where they're going different directions. As an older dog, if they're slipping too much, then it can actually cause them to be nervous about moving, and then they don't move as much, and then they get muscle wastage, and then they do less, and their activity dies down quite quickly. So feet are really important. It's important to trim the fur between the pads as best you can, and that can take some getting used to, and there's no one good way of doing it. Some dogs are happy for you to lift paws up from underneath them, or have them on your lap and upside down, so it varies from dog to dog. Okay, so what I would say is, while Merlin's sitting like this is a good time to use just your normal scissors, and you're just going to literally trim the area of the paw that is touching the table. Okay, so you just want that to be a little bit shorter all the way around there, and that just makes that nice and neat and even. The longer the fur is here, the more likely it's going to tuck under and then be slippery when they move around. Now we've got carpeted floors pretty much throughout, but our conservatory is tiles, and it is slippery if there isn't any rugs down, and I don't want them slipping as they're running in and out of the house having a great time. So while they're doing that, you can also have a look at underneath the foot, and I shall show you this in all the different cameras in a second. So again, I just do a small bit, and then I praise him, keep it nice and short for him. I don't need him standing again for this. So all I'm going to do is just come around a little bit here so I can show you under the paw. So you want to get the back of the foot. You're a good boy, I've got it, it's alright. You can do the sides. I'm going to be silly, Mum. Going to be a silly boy. Hey, you're going to be silly. There you go. Good boy. And so doing it like this, as if I'm working with a horse, is one of the best ways of doing it. No, good boy. You're alright. You're okay. Right, face this way then. We need a foot, don't we? Okay. There's my boy. Good lad. Can I see? To be fair, I don't normally lean over him like this. This is purely for the camera. He's thinking, what on earth are you doing, woman? Right, I'll try this camera instead, because he's not used to me being. This is a good time to use just your normal scissors, and you're just going to literally trim the area of the paw that is touching the table. Okay, so you just want that to be a little bit shorter all the way around there, and that just makes that nice and neat and even. The longer the fur is here, the more likely it's going to tuck under and then be slippery when they move around. Now we've got carpeted floors pretty much throughout, but our conservatory is tiles, and it is slippery if there isn't any rugs down, and I don't want them slipping as they're running in and out of the house having a great time. So while they're doing that, you can also have a look at underneath the foot, and I shall show you this in all the different cameras in a second. So again, I just do a small bit and then I praise him, keep it nice and short for him. I don't need him standing again for this. So all I'm going to do is just come round a little bit here so I can show you under the paw. So you want to get the back of the foot. You're a good boy, I've got it, it's all right. You can do the sides. I'm going to be silly, Mum. Going to be a silly boy. Hey, you're going to be silly. Okay. Good boy. And so doing it like this, as if I'm working with a horse, is one of the best ways of doing it. No, good boy. You're all right. You're okay. Right, face this way then. We need a foot, don't we? Okay. Here's my boy. Good lad. Can I see? To be fair, I don't normally lean over him like this. This is purely for the camera. He's thinking, what on earth are you doing, woman? Right, I'll try this camera instead because he's not used to me being like that. So we'll pick the foot up here. Good boy. That's better, isn't it? And we're just going to trim in between where the pads are and also in between where the claws are there. And by doing that and getting as much off as we can, getting right in there, we are taking away any kind of slip risk, because it's actually quite short already, because I do them quite regularly. Good boy, aren't you? Hey? Good boy. So that's it, good lad. So picking them up sometimes can be quite useful. Having them settle down here can also be useful so you can see what you're doing. And just going all the way around the paw. There's a good man. Yes, he is. Can you have a look? You're going to show us. There's a good boy. So in here, between the pads and the nail is also another really good place to get into. Okay, you darling. So again, I would normally do all 4 in one go. I might do a quick, just getting as much off as I can, and then the next time I then make it a bit more neater. But that's one of the areas that I definitely keep up to date with my dogs, if nothing else, as well as keeping them comfortable, because they're nice short, nice short fur on their paws makes so much difference to them. So let's put you on the floor for a second, mate. Good boy. And so this one's Ripley. This is my younger one. And so she's got different fur to Merlin. It's still, found the coats on the floor. She's still got the terrier fur, so a double coat, but she's got a lot less of it than Merlin. It's a lot thinner, and a lot less tends to come out for her, doesn't it, Sweet Pea? So again, I'm just going to quickly go over her. Yeah, we are, aren't we? Good girl. So she takes a lot less time to just get a comb going through, don't you? But she does seem to have a lot more texture in her fur, so she takes longer when I'm doing trimming. So while you're doing this, the other good thing about having a quick groom over your dogs regularly, so it hasn't got to be a thorough groom, is you're also checking your dog over. So I did mention in the notes that we'd be covering in this session that examination would be in there and getting to know your dog. And so what I mean by getting to know your dog is understanding and recognising what your dog looks and feels like most of the time, okay? Not wanting to put any fear into anyone, but dogs, you know, if they suddenly develop a lump or a bump or something that shouldn't be there, if you don't know what your dog's body feels like, how are you going to know if something's appeared or disappeared? So it's good to know how your dog's body is meant to be and how it is at any given time. Okay, Taylor, which is Merlin's uncle, I noticed one evening, got home from work and noticed that he had a lump, a really big lump on his shoulder. So we got him booked in for the vets for 2 days later. By the next day I got home from work and it had got bigger and it had changed from a squashy moving one to a rock solid one, and it did unfortunately turn out to be hemangiosarcoma. But I caught it really early on because I found it because I knew it shouldn't be there. And we got treatment, and you know, yes, we did lose him, but he had 7 months of such happiness, such a happy little dog, and pain free, and being able to still do all the stuff that he loved, which is the main thing, isn't it? Hey, but I managed to find it. If I wasn't used to what his body felt like, and he wasn't used to me feeling him and being able to do that, then I might not have noticed it, and he might have been in a lot more discomfort and we might have lost him a lot quicker. So it can be good to get used to what your dog's body feels like. So that is, you know, lumps and bumps, how far can they move, parts of the body, you know, are they able to lift a leg and put it back down again? Can they stand quite comfortably, you know, like that? As you're bringing your hand round, how does everything feel? Can you feel the ribs quite happily? You know, just gets you used to what everything feels like. And then if something isn't right, you can think, well, that wasn't like that last week when I last groomed them. And so you can get on top of things quite quickly. So Ripley has got quite long fur on her feet, on the tops of the feet. So you'll see in the other window, I also give the tops of her feet a little bit of a groom because I don't want things getting in there. Now, one of the main things that can happen when your dog's fur is long around their feet is grass seeds can get in. And once a grass seed gets in, either up or in the top, it works its way in and then it causes sores and can be infections. It actually can travel their way up and get into organs and things eventually as well, horrible little things. So by getting rid of as much extra fur that's not needed as possible around the feet, top and bottom, you can stop grass seeds from getting caught on the fur, which then works their way in. They're really hard to get out again. There are ways, but it is hard. A lot of dogs that have grass seeds embedded often need surgery to have them taken out, which obviously isn't ideal, is it? Let's just go over that bit there. Good girl. So she's got a little knot on her chest, so she wasn't happy about that, so she let me know just by lifting a paw up. That's all she needed to do. So I've stopped. See if I can hold on to a bit of that fur and get that knot. There you go, good girl. Wow, that's better, wasn't it? Isn't it? So all I've done there is literally, if I show you sort of here, say it was here, I've just put my fingers through and held onto the fur like that and then worked the very end of the fur. So if that was my hair, it was exactly the same thing as if I was trying to get a knot out of my hair, and that way it's not pulling it and it's not made it uncomfortable. In fact, there it is, there's the knot. And she's going to be happy for me to brush her there again. Okay, what a clever girl you are, aren't you? Yes, you are. So I'm also going to mention while she's up here other things to be paying attention to on your dogs. So things like not only how they feel and how they look overall, but how other things sort of look or smell or feel from just general. So she's not excited at the minute, she's not been out running, she's not just finished eating. That's a good girl. So at the minute everything is pretty much baseline. There's a very good girl. Yes, you are. It's all baseline. So this is a really good time to check just general bits and pieces really. You can have that being so good. Okay. So, for example, what does your dog's ears normally look like? So, let's just turn you around. So, whether they're drop-eared or prick-eared, you should still be able to look into your dog's ear. Now, she needs some fur plucked out of there, really. But you can probably see it's not very remarkable. It's just, it's clean, there's no dirt in there. If you was to smell your dog's ears, is there anything horrible going on in there? So I know that her ears normally should have no smell, shouldn't have any dirt in them, and that they're a very pale pink. If I looked in her ear and saw that this section here was suddenly like salmon pink or bright pink or red, then I'd know that something wasn't quite right. It'd probably feel warm as well, you'd probably smell something, and that would be an indication of possibly an infection or something else going on, and that's then when you want to ideally sort of let your vet know, or holistic vet or whoever you see. If you're looking at your dog's eyes, they should be quite clean. So you can have a little look. Ripley has so much fur around her face, it's ridiculous. No matter what, there's always fur there, isn't there, hey? Always. So it's good to have a little look just to check that there's no bits of dirt. She hasn't had anything that's any discharge from her eyes, because that can then come down here and go, you know, obviously a bit hard and crusty and horrible, and that's not very pleasant. You can check if there's lots of discharge going down here that changes the colour. That can be an indication of something going on in the system as well. Sometimes it could be a yeasty problem, sometimes it's something else. But making sure that the eyes, you know, are quite clear is something you can do quite easily. I've just done that with Ripley there then. You can also look at teeth and gums. So gums, so I'm going to show you in this camera. Gums should be reasonably pinkish, reddish. They shouldn't be white. You might find that they're a little bit darker, so Merlins quite often are a darkish pink. But it's good to know what your dog's gums look like when they have something happen. So if their body goes into shock, if they're fighting an infection, if they're really ill, often their gums will change colour, and if the blood goes out of them, so if they literally just look white when you look at them, or if you push them and it takes more than a few seconds for the blood to go back in, the capillary refill, then that can be an indication that something's not quite right. So if there's other things going on and that, then they're all things that you can let your vet know. What your dog's mouth looks like underneath the hood here, what colour are these gums, what do they normally look like. You can also have a look at what your dog's teeth are doing, are they okay? Have they lost anything from there? Good girl. You know, is everything as it should be? Just get used to it, really. Does your dog's breath smell? Because dogs might have a young dog. Dog's breath can smell from very, very young. Periodontal disease and oral diseases, like gingivitis, can start on really young dogs, to be honest. It doesn't take a lot, but as the section we are going to talk about later is teeth cleaning. So get used to them. What do they look like? You might be surprised when you have a really good look through at actually how much dirt might be on their teeth, and you can start getting rid of that quite early on before it turns into the hard pluck. So have a look, get used to what your dog looks like. Yeah, have a look and get used to what their nails look like. Are they too long? Because like these are long. There's terrier nails, they should be quite long. But they don't need to be ridiculously long. If they're at the point where your dog's paw can't be at a normal pace because the nail's too long, so then they're doing that actually then is uncomfortable for them. It changes how they stand and how they move. It then means that their body is hunched up differently, and that can have an effect on the organs as well. So actually, nails that are too long can be really, really bad for dogs. Show you Ripley's paws underneath. So she has ridiculously fluffy feet. So we have to do quite a lot with those. So you can see I'm just getting, good girl, all the way in there. This is for me how I find is the easiest way of looking at their feet. I don't want to wrench their paw up over their heads, because if I make it too uncomfortable, they won't let me do it at all. And so then we are looking at what's going on in there. I'm going to give just the top a little bit more of a trim. There's a good girl, aren't you? So yeah. Get used to your dog, what everything looks like, how do they feel, is anywhere, oh pardon you, is anywhere particularly hot or cold. So Ripley has quite a warm belly. I remember with Taylor used to have little sort of dark patches on his body, but he'd had that for his whole life, the whole 13 and a half years. He had black blotches on his body, whereas Merlin, Ripley and Cassie never have. So if they suddenly had that, I'd be wondering what's going on there. So get used to what your dog's body looks like, feels like. You know, different areas, how they are naturally, and that way you can spot much quicker if something's not quite right with them. Also, it gets them used to being handled. If your dog's used to being handled everywhere, so you can see I can check everywhere I need to with my dogs, no problems whatsoever. And if I can check places, it means if anything wasn't quite right, it means I can check, it means my vet can check, it means that things are going to get done much quicker and much easier than if my dog's worried and doesn't like it. Alright, so if they're not keen, now's a good time to start practicing. And you literally can just grab, cut the treats, get a quiet corner. If you've got other dogs, maybe, you know, have them somewhere else, and just have a treat, give them a couple of strokes here and there, you know, run the hand from the head right down, including the tail. It might be down the legs, get them used to that. Don't have to pick them up at this stage. Get used to looking in the ears, that's good. Looking in the eyes, that's very clever. And not pushing it, so I'm not really getting in there, I'm just having a quick look. I'm not really yanking the tail up, I'm just having a quick look. And it just makes it part of a nice bit of interaction and communication that we have with our dogs. Okay, yeah, you're a good girl, aren't you? You are. So, that's this first section, is that little bit of grooming. Another thing that you could have a look at using if you wanted to, if you have got a bit of a wriggly dog, are items that you can put food inside. So this is a snuffle mat, and you just put the treats would go in here. So you could have that here. while your dog's being groomed, and they've got something to focus on over here. So those sorts of things can be quite handy. Interactive toys can be quite good. Obviously something like a Kong or a ball is likely to roll off, so it might not be perfect, but certainly something that they can just get their head in while you're doing your thing. I find that can be quite useful if I need to get right in there with the tail, if they've got a lot of fur around their bum, because I haven't done it for a couple of weeks, then I do need to be there for a little while. I don't really want them moving and sitting on my scissors, so I'll put something down for them just to keep their attention at the other end for a few seconds. Yeah, and that can work quite nicely as well. So I am going to go into nails next. So we're going to swap where we're standing shortly. So with your dog's nails, dogs have got different types, so you'll have black and you'll have white, and some dogs have got a combination. White nails tend to be a tiny bit easier to cut, and they're also much easier to look at. What happens in the dog's nail is you'll have something called the quick, which is when if you do cut your dog's nails too short, that's what's bleeding basically inside. It's not typically overly painful for your dog, but of course it will have some discomfort, and obviously blood's coming out, and that panics us, which then panics our dogs, and it just has a whole ongoing situation there. So the reason why you can only take off a small amount of your dog's nail at a time is because as the dog's nail grows, the quick grows as well. Once you start trimming a smaller bit off every few days, the quick starts receding, and then you can actually get on top of those nails. Now, when a dog has black nails, which my dogs have, you can't see where the quick is. When you've got lighter nails, you can just about see where the quick is, so you can cut just in front of it. Black nails you can't, you just have to kind of hope for the best, get used to your dogs. So Cassie, Taylor and Merlin, who are all related, all of them have 1 foot, 1 paw, which is their back, I think it's their back right one, which is this one, it will bleed at the smallest amount, literally. Take the smallest amount off, it will bleed. So we're always ready for that. We expect that one to do it, we do it last, we know it's going to bleed anyway, so we take the same amount as everything else. We don't just try and take a tiny bit off, because it doesn't work. Tiny bit still bleeds, and always has done with all 3. So for that we then get ourselves ready for. So there are things that you can use for grooming. So for example, these are quite handy, this sort of thing, similar to what vets have, and it helps with, you just put this, you sort of snap it, and the liquid all comes out, and you put that on where it's bleeding from, and that can help, unless there's blood everywhere, then it's a bit different. But if there's a bit of blood, then they do help to stop bleeding. You can get, I can't think of the name of it now, I will look it up, put it in the notes. You can get powder specifically for grooming, and if your dog's bleeding, so again you can then put their paw in a pot of it, and that helps to soak it up. Flour actually is quite handy as well, we've used it ourselves. The dogs had a quick bit of bleeding, quick stick it in there, and that helps to just stop it going everywhere. Obviously if you do catch your dog's nail and there is blood, this is just to get you might be you're doing it at a crazy time at night, or you know, you're camping somewhere in the middle of a field, you just need to get it stopped there and then. Still then obviously go to your vet just to make sure there's no infection or anything going on there. But yeah, so there's loads of ways that you can help if there's bleeding, but obviously we'd rather than not be. So there's a few different tools that you can use for grooming a dog's nails. You've got clippers of one sort or another. So I prefer this style. You can also get guillotine ones, which have kind of an opening, and then a bit just shuts down like that. Personally I prefer this kind, which clip from both sides of the nail at the same time. You just get a cleaner cut for me, but it's whatever you prefer to use. Now when you're using clippers, get your dog used to it. If you've got a puppy now, even if they've got tiny nails, get them used to it, okay? Brought Ripley home, in the first few weeks I had her, she'd be upside down on my lap, and I'd just be clipping the smallest amount off her nails to get her used to it. They were so easy to break, I probably could have just snapped a bit off, to be fair, they were so thin, but it got her used to it. Because what happens is, as you clip, there's a tiny bit of pressure, just touches on the nail, and that's what often makes dogs then move, because that's that bit of pressure and they know what's coming. So by getting them used to it, especially when they're tiny and there's not really much pressure there, they get used to the feel of it, and then they're going to get a treat and praise, and it's all fine and nothing awful happens. But it gets you into the habit of doing it as well. So you don't want to do it every single day, because you're not going to give the quick a chance to recede. But if your dog has got long nails already, then you could do them today, for example. You might even just do 1 or 2, and then maybe next day do another couple and do it over a week. And then a week later you can start again, do the first couple again, and just very, very literally like a millimetre or two here and there is all you'd need if you've got dogs with very long nails. If you was to take them to the vets often will go, right, okay, that's uncomfortable for the dog, we're just going to get them off because they're not comfortable, and deal with the bleeding. But obviously they're in a place where they can stop it getting infected, etc. So just be careful grooming your dog's nails. So clippers and guillotines can work, but some dogs are really, really nervous of them. Some dogs are absolutely petrified. You can do counter conditioning kind of exercises with them, where you sit with them and you just get them used to the fact you're holding them and treat. Let them do some nose touches and see them, give them treats. You can then start picking up the dog's paw, treat, and then gradually get closer and closer. And you're talking months and months and months of work, but it can work. It can really work. So that's really, really handy to be able to have. So you take your time with it, gradually build your dog up, and you want to keep it as pleasant as possible. All right. So what you don't want to then do is think, oh, okay, well I managed to touch the nail today. That's good. I'll try clipping all the nails on all 4 feet. That's too much too soon. Got to remember, not only is it the nail being clipped and the noise and everything else that's associated, but because we've got to lift the paw up. You saw with Merlin how, because I was leaning over in a weird way, he wasn't comfortable with me lifting his paw like that. Imagine if I then went, no, I want to do all of your claws. He's not going to want me to do that next time, is he? So I've then said, actually, it's me, I'm leaning over you, I'll come round to you. It could also be that he's got a bit of an ache somewhere. He does have luxated patella in his back legs. So if he's standing, I'm lifting up a front paw, then obviously he's putting more pressure on the back. So, there's so many reasons why dogs might not be comfortable having nails done. So think about your dog, make it much smaller, and we can help them to not necessarily enjoy it, but we can help them to be more comfortable with it. Now, another method that I quite like to use, especially because I've got terrier, my dog's got terrier claws, is to use something like a Dremel or a pet grinder. Now you can get different kinds. You can get actual pet grinders, which tend to be, a lot of them are battery operated, and they've got quite a low rotational speed. But if you've got a dog that's got very thin nails, and especially if they're white as well or clear, chances are they're going to be quite sort of brittleish, so you're going to get through them with a pet grinder without too much trouble. Having said that, you probably find you can use your guillotines and your scissors without much trouble as well. If you've got a dog that has got black thick nails, especially if they're like a terrier that are meant to use their nails for living, then you're going to find that a lot of the pet grinders might not be a strong enough rotation, or if you get one with the highest level of rotation. So that's the speed of the motor, because you need the speed to actually do anything. Otherwise you're going to be there for ages trying to get anything to come off. Not to say it will never do anything, but you're there for much longer. That's not always great for dogs, especially if they're getting used to it. So ours is a few years old now, but we got the Dremel itself, and you can get ones that are battery operated. And with that, you can then hold the machine itself. So this is the actual Dremel bit itself. And you have the sanding disc that goes on to the very end, and you literally then can hold your dog's paw, or you can have them on your lap, and you just touch the nail, which I will be showing you, touch the nail, treat, touch the nail, treat, and get them used to it. Now, you have more noise, but you don't have the same pressure that you have with the guillotine. It is noisy. If you leave it on the nail, then there will be a slight bit of a smell because you're starting to warm up the nail, so that might not be ideal. But what it does tend to do is you can file, look at what you're doing, and you're less likely to end up with blood, okay? Because you're not cutting through the quick. What tends to happen, if you do take a little bit of the quick off, is it cauterises it quite quickly, so you don't tend to get the blood, okay? But you can also see where the quick is, because you see a little sort of a ring of white at the tip, and that will show you where the quick is, and so you then don't do any more at that moment, okay? So I will run this up later for you so you can hear what it sounds like. Now what we did, because of the ME that I've got and the tendonitis in my hands, holding this is quite heavy for what it is, and of course it vibrates and there's a lot of noise coming out of it. So if that's right near my dog's ears, because I've only got little legs, that's not going to be great. So we also opted to get the attachment part, which attaches to the base where the sanding disc normally is, and it just means that this bit can sit on the floor, and then all I've got to hold is that tiny bit there, so I can get to my dog's claws. So it's much lighter, there's no vibrating. The motor is then far away from my dog, so it makes it a much more pleasant experience. And that's just my preference. You haven't got to do that, that's just my preference. Okay. So my Dremel is a 3000. There are so many versions of Dremels. They all do a really good job, but you do want to get a good level of rotation, whatever type of grinder or Dremel, etc. that you use. So you've got many ways of trimming your dog's nails. There is another way, and I don't have it at home to show you, unfortunately. It's in my training premises, which obviously I can't get to. So you can also file your dog's nails, and I will add a bit of a video to this for you. So what you can do is, if you can teach your dogs to wipe their paws, or you can teach them to give paw, so they can do that action, then you can actually get them to wipe their paws on something. So what you can then have is sandpaper. You can get double-sided sandpaper, coarse sandpaper, not double-sided, sticky back, blue Peter somehow. That when you then put it on a board, you can ask your dogs to wipe their feet or give paw, and you'll get that nice scraping action. The only downside is, quite often, because of the way your dog's paw is formed, as they're doing that, it's only those two are actually touching the sandpaper and the other two not so much, so then you need to start curving it. However, excuse me, if you can use a bit of guttering, half guttering action, actually all nails are touching a surface. Guttering with a piece of sticky backed sandpaper works really well. My guttering's trained, like I say, so I can't show you that, but it can actually get them to file that down a little bit. And if you did that every day for a minute or two, you'd find that starts wearing that nail down quite nicely. If you road walk your dogs that again have got lighter nails tend to find that they can be worn down a little bit from road walks. But again, if you've got terrier nails, if your dad or your dogs have got really thick dark nails, chance of them wearing down on roads is very slim. You're not going to get a lot. You're not going to benefit as much than you will do from actually cutting them or dremeling them or something like that. Okay, so keep an eye on your dog's nails, see how they're getting on, and work slowly. So don't think, I'll wait until they get long then I'll do some work. Start now. If you've got a puppy, start now. If you've got a rehome dog, let them settle in, of course, but have a try at, you know, if they're happy for you to touch their paws, have a try at starting to work with touching their paws, making noises with the stuff in the background while they're playing. You know, get them used to it and build up to it. Don't wait for your dogs to end up with really long nails and then try and start introducing things, because by the time you can actually do anything, they're going to be in a lot of pain from their nails being way too long. Okay, the other thing to think about is then also where you're trimming your dog's paw fur. You need to trim that first, really, so that then you can see what's going on with the nails. Otherwise you can't really see very well when you're trying to get the fur out of the way, trying to clip. Everything just happens at once and it makes it really difficult. Yeah, so I'm going to move on to demonstrating a few bits and pieces for you in a second. So that is dog's nails, and we'll be talking about teeth brushing in the next section. So there's two parts to this one, just so it's not too long for you. Okay, so demonstrations coming up.